How long should a password be? Hi everyone, I'm Leo Notenboom for AskLeo.com, and the answer is 16. Thanks. Oh wait, you want more? Okay, well, let's find out why 16 is so important, and actually what some of the better answers really are. So one of the things that has changed over time is this concept of exactly how long a password should be. In years past, 8 random characters was considered enough, and it's nowhere near enough anymore. As you can tell by my immediate off-the-cuff answer, 16 was twice as long. But there's actually some more nuances to that. Let me go over some of the reasons why a longer password is so incredibly important these days, and why that 8-character password doesn't work. One of the things we hear about frequently these days are what I'll call large-scale account hacks or breaches. Those are the scenarios where someone has hacked into a service or a company and they've taken the database, the user database from that company. Now, normally, a user database will have usernames, maybe email addresses, your name, some other personal information, and they will not actually have the passwords. The passwords will instead be hashed. A hash is a mathematical function that takes the password you entered, translates it into a number, and then stores that number. The important thing about a hash, of course, is that it can't be reversed. You can't take that number and reverse calculate what the password was that generated that number. However, when you've got a large-scale breach, the hackers have the database at their disposal. And that means that they can try a number of techniques to try and figure out what the passwords are, even though they've been hashed. For example, they can try some of the common hashing algorithms. There's more than one, and that's just the math behind that translation from password to number. They can try any number of the common password hashing algorithms, and they can just start calculating hashes on all possible passwords or on all common passwords. And once they calculate the hash for a password, say password, and they come up with this number, if they find that number in the database, well, they now know that the password for the account that had that number is password. So by doing that at a large scale and throwing lots of hardware at the problem, which again, hackers can do, they can run through a database and essentially reverse calculate or reverse engineer what the passwords actually are for most common passwords and this is critical, for short passwords. For example, it is possible to do this operation for every possible 8-character password. I don't care how many characters you use, how many different characters you use, or whether you use them randomly or not. All possible combinations of letters, numbers, and special symbols that are kept in 8 characters or less can be calculated, can be used in this kind of a dictionary attack. So if you've got an 8-character password and the hackers know what algorithm to use, they can figure out what the password is anyway. They can't go backwards from your hash to your password, but what they can do is they can go forward from every possible password until they find your hash. And that's when they know what your password is. Now, like I said, every possible 8-character password. So if you get to 16 characters, it would take centuries for that same approach to come close to working. To actually calculate all possible 16-character passwords with today's technology would literally take centuries of computing time. Even if you threw all the hardware you had at it, it would take too long. This is the reason that length matters so much. In fact, I'll even go so far to say as to length is much more important than complexity. If you take an insecure 8-character password and just put 4 asterisks in front and behind it, you now have a significantly more secure, in fact, I'll even say secure enough password at 16 characters. So like I said, length matters, especially when it comes to passwords. You know what? There's a better approach, and that's called the passphrase. When you use a passphrase, what you're doing is you're picking some words, 4 or 5 words that you string together. They should be random. In other words, you pick 5 words that would never really appear together. The canonical example, and the example that you should never ever use because it's become the canonical example, is correct horse battery staple. Those are 4 words. They add up to a very long password, so we've met our length criteria, and it's incredibly easy to remember. I just rattled it off because it was that easy. If you take a look at the XKCD comic that actually talks about correct horse battery staple, you'll see why it is so easy for you to remember with a couple of interesting mnemonic devices. You should, of course, choose your own words. Use 4 or 5 words that maybe have some meaning to you, but that would never appear together. That way you'll be able to both remember and have a long enough password that you can use just about anywhere. One of the pushbacks I keep getting whenever I talk about passphrases and words is, aren't we supposed to not use words in our passwords? Correct. You should not use words in your short passwords. An 8-character password that is a word or even a couple of words, that's going to get hacked instantly. Even a 12-character password that consists of just a couple of words is probably going to get hacked fairly quickly. The key here is length. Getting yourself to a long password, 16 characters or longer, and making it easier for you to remember. Sure, hackers certainly could try all possible English words and seeing if they magically run across your particular combination of words. But as it turns out, that's even a larger number of calculations than it is to simply calculate all possible letters to a certain length. So passphrases are one of the most secure and one of the easiest ways to generate a password that's long enough, that meets that length criteria that is so important for security in today's world. Shouldn't services do better? Of course they should. They really should. There are so many things that different services do poorly that it can be frustrating sometimes to come up with an answer, a solution, or even as an individual, a technique that will work across all of the services you happen to use. The fact is, we're dealt with what we're dealt with. I mean, we have the services we have, they use the techniques that they use, and you have to make sure that you are secure. That is your responsibility, not theirs, unfortunately. What that means is that you have to act as if every service you use does security poorly. You just have to, because it's the least secure one that's going to get hacked, and you don't know which one that is. So that means always choose long passwords, use passphrases when possible, use even longer passwords. The standard I use for myself is actually 20 completely random characters. I use LastPass to save all my passwords for me, and that is another technique that you should seriously consider for remembering all of those really long or really complex passwords, regardless of what technique you use. And of course, always make sure to use a different password on every site. I can't overstate the importance of this one. Remember, it's the sites with the worst security that are going to get hacked. Those are the sites that you don't know have the worst security. And once that happens, that password should be considered compromised, and the hackers absolutely do run around and try it everywhere they possibly can. It gets added to the list of passwords to try first whenever they're breaching an account. For links, updates, references, and more to the article on which this video was originally based, visit askleo.com/4844. I'm Leo Notenboom. This is AskLeo.com. Thanks for watching.